Well, welcome everyone to the Governance and Operations Committee meeting for September 25th, 2023. Just a little reminder that the webinar will be recorded and published on the city's YouTube site. The first item on the agenda is a delegation, and that is the Lower Columbia Initiatives Corporation to deliver their 2023 third quarter report. So welcome, you guys. Look forward to hearing from you.
And we also have Maura here with us today, and she's going to update you on the LCCBTS side of things. So Sandy has very nicely gotten our presentation up there, and this is what we're calling a special edition of our presentation. It is a contract renewal year for the LCCBTS, LCIC Duo, and we decided that we're going to give you a history of Metal Tech Alley. So just for those of you who are fairly new to the Metal Tech Alley LCIC thing, and I'm going to give you just kind of what I hope is like a fun and interesting backgrounder on how we look at economic development. And then Maura is going to update you on the LCCBTS activities. If you have any questions about like our regular projects and stuff, feel free to ask us. We can certainly do that, and you guys get our quarterly reports. So Q3 will be coming out in like a week, I guess, since we're almost done Q3, which is kind of shocking. All right. Yeah,
just ask me to move slide.
Yeah, slide, please. Forward to the first slide. So this is called Foraging for Opportunities because I want to talk about economic development using an analogy. And the analogy I'm going to use is gardening. So I'm starting with foraging because that's what people used to do before we had agriculture. And without investment, economic development is like foraging. So we take what's naturally available. So in Trail, it started mining and then smelting. And we just kind of go with those economic opportunities that are there organically, and the economy grows that way. This approach to the economy doesn't necessarily yield the best possible results. So it certainly worked out in Trail's favor in the 20th century, and we were a powerhouse of mining and smelting. But as we transitioned into automation of manufacturing and processing, I think we all saw that Trail took a definite economic hit during that time. And certainly once Teck, which is primarily a mining company, took over from Cominco, the interest in smelting became less of a focus. And we felt the effects of that again as the business model kind of changed up the hill. So those are kind of what can happen when things are just left to develop organically in the economy. So we go to the next slide. It's growing a healthy economy. So when you hire an economic developer or people to do economic development for you, it's like creating a garden and hiring a gardener. So if you think of the economy like garden, you are actually putting the time and effort and money into creating a nice garden, and then you're paying somebody to look after that garden for you. So that's kind of what we do. We make plans for our economic garden, and then we are the caretakers who actually act on those plans. And the idea is, instead of foraging and just taking what's there, you're going to get a better yield when you grow a garden. You can plan what kind of vegetables and fruits you'd like to have. And when we translate that over to economic development, it's like the communities have more control over the development they want to see happen. So you can go to the next slide. And just to give you, kind of an analogy of how we work. So a gardener might look for pests or issues in the garden that are going to prevent it from producing a good yield, or, kind of augment it by trying to extend the growing season with the greenhouse. And that's similar to how economic developers work, right? We're looking at what are the barriers to growth in the economy. So for instance, like the transportation issues that we face in this region because of the geography. And we try and mitigate those. And then, like Yakimine does, we look for opportunities in our economic garden, and we're trying to act on those and actively promote them. So that's like the battery hub. And in the end, on the next slide, hopefully we get thriving economic results. So when we put ongoing effort into the garden, we get a great harvest. And my point here, as you know, and this is really kind of a thanks to the city for sticking with us over the years, is that it takes time to do economic development well, right? So if you create a garden one year and then you throw some seeds at it and you're like, okay, we're good, we created a garden, and then you walk away, you're probably not going to get the results that you wanted. So it's really about taking the time year after year to invest in your garden or in your economic development team. And for that, we really want to thank you because you guys have stuck with us. And even though it's sometimes seemed like, where is this Middle Tech Alley thing going? What is happening with Middle Tech Alley? We're hoping that we're able to demonstrate some results now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yakimine, and she's going to give you the Middle Tech Alley story.
Thanks, Rebecca. My story now seems much more boring.
Well, that's a first. That's literally.
Thank you. So what we've tried to do here is just to give you the history of where Middle Tech Alley comes from. It started in 2016 with a foreign direct investment strategy from federal funding that we got. And that's how Middle Tech Alley, the brand, was born. Metal, metallurgical, tech up on the hill, the tech companies that we have here, and we're an alley, you know, everything is next to the river. So that's how Middle Tech Alley was born. And then we got funding from the Rural Dividend Fund in 2017. And we started to focus on the metallurgical and technological opportunities that was here. Midas was part of that, which is now Stack. I have a very cool story about Stack of that. And the I4C building that started, what happened? So we all know that I4C did not survive COVID. They're in that building. But what we heard is out of the horse's mouth. Is that English? I have sayings that I translate from Afrikaans to English, and then she's never heard that. So I always have to confirm that it's something that she'll understand. Then I know you'll understand it. So we heard from the horse's mouth the other day that a big opportunity was passed by in the I4C building because at that point there was not enough power. And that business opportunity went to the East Cookies where they didn't have enough resources. So now at this point, we do have the resources that we needed then. And I remember Terry had lots of meetings with Fortis at that point. Bill Van Beek went with her on those meetings, and we just couldn't figure it out with them. And then after all of this happened, suddenly they upgraded the substation and the power is there. So that happened, but we still feel that the start of Middle Tech Alley in 2017 and everything that we've accomplished was good. Then in 2019, we got another set of funding from the Rural Dividend Fund, and we decided to figure out what's next for Middle Tech Alley. So we looked at circular economy. Everybody was talking about circular economy in the circles that we moved. And we realized that we do have a unique ecosystem of industrial circular economy here already with tech, the recycling facilities, and the circles that go around. So we hosted the Industrial Circular Economy Conference in 2021, which was a big success. We had, even though it was only virtual because of COVID, we had people from 160 different countries that attended the conference, from over 500 people from 160 different countries. And that also led to me presenting at the World Circular Economy Forum in 2021 on 2 occasions, which was probably the biggest audience I've ever had, even though I couldn't see them. So then we decided, okay, so then our funding ran out in 2021, and we were thinking, what's next? That's where the Battery Hub was born. As part of the Battery Metals Association of Canada, it was identified that there needs to be a battery hub in Western Canada and Eastern Canada. So our focus now with funding from the province is still on the feasibility study for the battery hub, even though we do other circular economy stuff as well. And the good news story about that is we got extra funding from the province just a month ago. And we are now expanding the feasibility study because they want us to. So we are going to identify some of the key projects in that. And then from January to March, we are going to do in-depth analysis on those 3 projects with the extra funding that we're getting from the province. So that's kind of a, feather in our cap. They're willing to, and we did not really ask for it. It was, wow, yeah, okay, thank you, we'll say. Yeah, so that's the brief history of Middletech Alley, but I quickly want to tell this. So Casey Recycling, you all know Casey Recycling recycles car batteries. And they have these battery casings. That's now, it's a polypropylene plastic, but it's contaminated. So you cannot use it for anything really. So they make these pallets, plastic pallets, and then they ship it back to the battery manufacturer in Pennsylvania to become another battery casing. But we were trying to think of doing something with that you don't have to ship it all the way back. So they went to Stack with these pallets, but that was about a year ago that happened. So Stack was trying to see what they can do with these pallets. And last week on Thursday, they were able to make a vase, a 3D printed vase from the pallets from Casey Recycling. It's the best story ever. I was just amazed. So I took pictures of everything. We had the BC Innovation Commissioner here on Saturday. So I took pictures of everything and you will see it on social media. But it's very cool. Sorry, I'm off track there, but that's okay. Yeah. Can I have the next slide, please? So what we try to do here is we wanted to give you an idea of the type of connections that we've made. It was rather difficult to get this drawn up because if you look at the highlights on the left, sometimes I talk in front of 450 people, sometimes I talk in front of 3,000 people. So we couldn't kind of include that in the connections made on the right. So the connections on the right are basically one-on-one conversations that I had with people in either the region, national, international, wherever they are. What we have felt is that our national and international connections are definitely picking up. And after Rebecca and I went to Ottawa in June, we met with one of the people from Natural Resources Canada in Ottawa. And the first thing that he said to us, oh, I know about Middletech Alley. It's like, oh, okay, thank you. You know, what do you say? So I do feel initially our reach was very much national, local, national, and then local, provincial, and national and international will be next with the battery hub, especially. I think with what's going to come out of that, we will get international attention on this region, way more than what we have at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, we already have, right? Like, one thing was also in June when the World Circular Economy Forum was happening in Finland. And somebody at that said to someone else, have you been to Middletech Alley? Have you heard about what they're doing there? And this person was like, no, I've never heard of that. And the other person was like, well, you have to go to Middletech Alley. You have to see what they're doing there. So the fact that that's happening in Finland without us actually even being there is pretty remarkable in terms of.
Oh yeah, that's in the from Google kind.
Yeah.
From Seattle, from Google.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just in short. I wanted to make a point of what the history is of Middletech Alley and the growth that we've seen from the time that it started till now. And my vision for it after we get this battery hub study is it's just gonna explode after that. I have so many people. My list is so long of people that cannot wait to see that, to see what they can bring to the table. Everybody's interested, and we're going to be the center of it. So I really think it's going to be exciting times there.
Can I ask you a question? I saw it here at the bottom of the 2023 highlights, but how was your visit to Ottawa?
So what happened with our visit to Ottawa
Yeah, I remember the last time
is,
here.
yeah, so Parliament was sitting, in Richard's office told us that Parliament will recess the end of the next week, so we'll be fine coming when we went. And then on the Wednesday, I was traveling from Toronto to Ottawa, and when I got to Ottawa, I got a phone call from his assistant saying that Ottawa decided that they're breaking for summer today.
Oh,
But Richard said that they're still sitting today. You should come today, tonight, to Parliament. And I so we were running there and we went to dinner with him in the House of Commons. And then he took us around in the House of Commons and we were on the floor where they were arguing, and it's a circus, I can tell. But then, so what happened then is we were walking in the hallways of the House of Commons, and every single person that knows Richard wanted to know who we are. And he was telling our story to everybody. Even who's the guy with the sword, the security manager, he was interested. Well, tell me more. So I can tell you, we told the story, Richard and I told the story about 20 to 30 times that evening in the House of Commons, but I have no idea who he said to. And we handed out all our maps and everything that we had. What did happen is on the Thursday morning, we had a meeting with what do you call him? He's a lobbyist. He's a lobbyist.
No, he was working for one of the big consulting firms that does sort of the high level projects for federal government. So they rely on certain consulting firms to make plans for different types of projects. And he was one of those people. So he had considerable networks within the bureaucracy of the federal government, particularly natural resources Canada, I think.
What actually is important is he's a contact of Jocelyn Carver, who's the president of CBC board. He told him and us, you need to meet in Ottawa. So we did. So we had a meeting with him for about 2 hours on Thursday morning, and from that he's introduced us, and we did it all free of charge, even though that's his job. That's what he gets paid for. For us, he introduced us to about 5 or 6 people within Natural Resources Canada that are working on batteries, whom we've met with already, and everybody's waiting for the feasibility. So they're all on my list. So it was a bust, but not totally.
you think most of it, eh?
Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah.
Any other questions? Does, Morag still have to?
Yeah. More experiments.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you were to speak in the community future, so, right, go ahead.
So the Lower Columbia Community Development Team Society, as in very excellent that, is the primary contractor with you and with the regional district on this contract. The way that the work is split is that the LCIC staff and organization focus on economic development. But the work that the LCC DTS does focuses on is actually community development. So these are the two sides of the same coin. The last time I was here was, I think, in February this year. So there's been a bit of work that's happened since then. So the LCC DTS was on hiatus over the summer for July and August for the breaks. And we resumed the monthly meetings last week, actually on September 21st. Tia and Paul both participated in the RCC GTS meetings. Of the various committees, the most active remain the Agriculture Committee, the Sustainable Agriculture Committee, and its main project is the Incredible Farmers Market. More of that in a minute. The Attainable Housing Committee, the Sustainability Committee, and the Community Health Committee. So the Sustainability Committee hosted the first Modern Living show in May this year at the Wilmington Hall. It was for the first event of its kind. It was successful, lots of community interest, and the team is planning on a market next year, and are at the moment scouting potential venues and discussing timing with their vendors and participants. Also in May, the Sustainable Agriculture Committee hired Kristen Walsh, who is the first full-time, full-year Incredible Farmers Market manager. Kristen got to work straight away organising the summer markets in Trail and Fruitvale, and the Christmas markets, which will be held at the Juanita Mall in December. The market is also participating in a province-wide study that is being led by the UNBC on behalf of the BC Association of Farmers Markets. In August, the study team from that group were in Trail to conduct an on-site assessment of the market's impact on the local economy. They estimated that over 21,000 people participate in the market every year. About 20% of those are visitors and or day trippers to Trail. The market also contributes almost $1 million annually to the local economy. The actual figure is $990,000 a year. So and it grows. And Kristen gave an update of the market's work to the RCC GTS at the last committee meeting. It's incredibly impressive. The work that is being done there. I think the hope is that next year, so this year, it has been the Fruitvale and Trail markets, and I think the hope is that next year they will be able to incorporate the Wilson markets into the work as well. There is a range of work that's happening on the housing front, so Jan and Bill both wanted me to mention their incredible support and gratitude for the way that the debate here was handled around the temporary use permit for the new shelter on Riverside Avenue, and we are incredibly hopeful that we will be able to have a solution to the supported housing piece of that in the next few months. The Attainable Housing Committee and the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society, who work together, expects that they will have the occupancy of the Roslyn Yards building prior to October 1st, which is this weekend, and that's the date in which some tenants will be moving into the building. So this will be the third development for them. The first two were in East Trail. In addition, the Trail and District Senior Citizens Villa Society is preparing to submit a response to BC Housing's latest call for community housing fund. So this request is funding to redevelop the 70-year-old housing on the site of Sugar's Bench across from the Armories. The concept plan is to increase the density from the current 23 units to 40 units that are energy efficient and meet current affordable housing design standards. The proposed redevelopment will include an amenity room for tenant socializations and meetings and central outdoor green space, including raised plant beds for vegetable gardens. The Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society also aims to break ground on 31 units of affordable rental housing for low to moderate income families, seniors and adults with diagnosed developmental disability in the village of Fruitvale on the former middle school grounds. They are hoping that they're to break ground in October, so next month, and the projected occupancy is fall of 2025. So one of the things that is beginning to happen with the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society and the Affordable Housing Committee of the LCC BTS is that they are increasingly becoming a resource for local governments. So do a lot of support work for local governments in the region. And finally, the Community Health Centre Committee is continues to plan for the introduction of a community health centre in the Lower Columbia, which will support workforce and community development. Together with the Kootenay Boundary Division of Family Practice, the committee is developing for the provincial government to consider and are actively looking at potential sites that would be suitable for the suite of services and health supports that the committee envisages will be housed within the community health centre. And a new piece of information for me, I always thought that this was like likely to be one site. There's more likely to be a network of sites together. So that's that. I just wanted to also let you know that in October, Maggie Mattia is going to be doing an update, a presentation on what she is planning for Selkirk College and at the LCC BTS meeting that will be on October 19th. And in November, BC Housing, I think it's Doug Winter and Tyler Baker that have been invited to participate and have accepted that they to speak to the LCC BTS about their plans for trial.
Thank you. And does anyone have any questions? Also Benson.
Just wondering, so how many specific jobs have been created in the last year?
No idea. I mean, we don't track things like that because the way that economic development works, at least the kind of economic development that we do, it may be easier to ask, say, Community Futures such a question since they like directly inject cash to businesses. But you have someone like me who's looking at the regional economy and looking at issues and developing plans to work on those issues and address them. The likelihood that that's going to lead to direct job creation is very small. It's likely to lead to indirect job creation, which is a challenging thing to track. And then as far as Yakima work is concerned, I mean, if we can directly tie businesses being attracted through Metal Tech Alley, which we have done in the past through the Rural Dividend Fund reporting. But
Well, when we did the Rural Dividend Fund contract with it, we had targets for job creation and the agreement with the companies that was part of the grant application was that they will give us that information. We did sign an NDA, so we divulged the numbers, but not the names. So we did that for the time of the Rural Dividend Fund because we were under contract to do so. But now those companies do not have to give us that information. So it's not information that we get directly from them.
I'm just looking for direct correlation between economic development and the job creation and how many is that creating? Like, I understand there's a bigger scope to economic development and, attracting people, to the area and for what it is, but having some tangible targets of this is how many, new jobs we've created, this is how many new companies have come to the area because of, Metal Tech Alley, I think is imperative to know kind of where things are going. Have you also done anything in regards to smaller business that isn't necessarily metallurgical geared for economic development?
I mean, again, my work tends to be like around doing, like, say, the land inventory. I can see that being potentially beneficial to any sort of business that may come along that's looking to start in trail or investors here. So for instance, I was working with the RDKB to help I think he runs the Columbia Gardens winery with some information about a different parcel of land. So there are some instances of that nature where it's not strictly metallurgical or tech or anything like that we're working on. But I mean, the purpose of this kind of, investment attraction platform is we're targeting a very specific industry kind of sector. So I think when you look at something like Imagine Kootenai, which is no longer something that the LCIC does, but I have been speaking with Community Futures, and the Imagine Kootenai platform is currently going through kind of a revamp. Like that's an investment attraction kind of platform that services more small business and commercial entities. So we're looking at whether we can bring that back to this area. I don't think it would be run out of the LCI though, because our focus has shifted.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Sure.
I would say that the work of the LCIC does a lot of it's policy driven. So they do a lot of the work that develop the framework for community development. In terms of the community development piece, which is like much more boots on the ground pieces, you know, the work that we do at the LCCDTS allows other people to become employed. You know, so we've done a lot of work through the housing committee on developing new housing, which also results in jobs and as well as shelter. A lot of the work that is being done through the Sustainable Agriculture Committee, a portion of which is not all of it, but a portion of which is the market, provides an outlet for small vendors to be able to get their products to market. So there's lots of that kind of work that's done through the LCC. I don't know whether that's helpful.
Yeah, and I guess just to get back to your original question about the job creation thing. So, I mean, certainly when Metal Tech Alley is successful at attracting investors to the region, we will be keeping track of that. But in terms of measuring the value of economic development, I think that it's worth having a broader scope of metrics than just job creation. If you're looking at job creation, you are going to be looking at a very particular type of economic development that, again, I feel is very challenging to tie job creation. It's businesses that create jobs. It's economic development that helps businesses become established and thrive in the community. But it's also hard to say directly that my work on the low elevation crossing, if that's successful, and then businesses have an easier time with transportation and their costs go down, and so they're able to hire more people. Like that is a very long thread to follow. So I mean, I'm speaking from a biased position, but I think that there's value in having some aspect of work that don't immediately translate into the usual metrics of economic development, like job creation.
Okay. I had a quick question, actually. When you were talking about your history of Metal Tech Alley, you mentioned that you got some extra funding. Was that this year or last year? And what was the extra funding for?
So we're busy, we got funding from province for the battery feasibility study. And we met with them about 2 months ago. And they said that we can use another part of the funding also for the battery hub, or they told us to do that. So that's the extra funding that I was talking about. So it's extra money from the province that goes into the battery hub feasibility study, and that happened in the last 2 months.
Yeah, and the grant started, like, I think we got awarded the grant in 2022, and then it's floated through this year.
Okay. Councilor Cashel, do you have any questions?
You're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's good.
Yes.
I know it's more mentioned than maybe to hear too. Have you heard anything from her? She was on the radar there for
Colin might have spoken to her last night.
Didn't speak there. I know that some on council meeting when we go into those, updates on.
100%.
Okay,
Good.
next item on the agenda is the grants and aid.
I just
Um,
recuse myself for the.
Oh,
first
yes,
one, and then
okay.
of course, after-
First one up is the Community Futures of Greater Trail application for a cash grant. You guys?
Yeah. So that's just-
Does that give us enough?
I don't necessarily know that it does need to be discussed this last time when we were as a group. It was a little bit different because Community Futures was sort of operating in the grant piece, but I didn't see the very direct. I don't think it's,
Okay.
I mean, again,
Okay.
it is an individual choice. I can't, if you feel that you are, then that's the decision, but, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with sort of direct benefit.
Okay, we're all good?
Yeah.
Everybody's here that needs to be? Okay, so yes, the item 2.1 was the Community Futures of Greater Trail application for a cash grant. So the application is before you. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read it. If there's any questions or comments about it. This was the presentation that we received earlier. Okay. So,
That's during a workshop that council had just about
Yes.
trying to learn more about downtown and the ability to look at design to try to make it safer in downtown, which is a program that is not just for trail, but has been used in many different communities across the country. And in fact, we had someone here that was showing us some of the successes and some of the challenges that communities face, not on purpose, but just from having alcoves or having sightlines that were different. So we had a workshop on how this might work for the city of Trail.
okay, thank you. And the next item on the agenda, do I have to move second and, okay. I wasn't quite sure because usually, it's Monday, but. So can I have someone make that motion for the Community Futures, Greater Trail application? Councillor Martin, seconder, Councillor Butler, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously, thank you.
Just one
And-
moment, I'll get
do you
Councillor.
want to get that? The next item on the agenda is the Greater Trail Minor Hockey Association request for rental waiver. Councillor Benson. The next item on the agenda is 2.2.
I have family that plays minor hockey, so I have to recuse myself.
I can't see how.
Just making sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting to it again, just to be clear on this, right? No, it's all fair. Just part of it is an internal decision. If you feel you have a confidence that there's some sort of benefit that you're going to have. You feel your reason, then that's really what the decision. No, and again, these are great questions, man. Yeah, it's very important. Thank you. So carry on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, any questions or comments about the, Greater Trail Hockey Association? Right,
I was just gonna,
Councillor Hanson?
this is what they're asking for is consistent with what they've been asking for in the past, that we've always been allotting them.
Correct. It's basically ice that would otherwise go unused. It does provide some financial assistance to the association and gets the ice used. And it's been several years that we've provided it.
Thank you.
Okay. So may I have someone make that motion? Councillor Hanson, seconder, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Councillor Benson, Councillor Hanson, all those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you.